Are you tired of Bethesda's bullshit? Well, to be honest, the Oblivion remaster Shadow Drop, that was pretty cool, not gonna lie. But holy smokes, I have literally grown gray hairs waiting for the Elder Scrolls 6. Well, have no fear, folks, because indie Skyrim is finally here. Hello everyone, it's Troy, and today I want to talk about Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon. You know anything about me? I love Elder Scrolls, I love a good Scrolls-like, I love Bethesda. These are definitely my jam. And geez, side tangent here, it's been a great year for Scrolls-like, which I guess is a new genre now because there's so many of them. Of course, we had Oblivion Remaster, now we have Tainted Grail, we had Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. There's a few I haven't even played yet, like Avowed, and what was that, like kind of Fallout-like one? Oh yeah, Atomfall, which was like UK Fallout. Just in general, this Scrolls-like genre has sort of emerged in 2025, and we have more down the line coming too. It's good, it's exciting. I think there needs to be some competition against Bethesda here. And here we have Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon, which is developed by Questline and was released on May 23rd of this year, of 2025. And yes, I know I'm really late. Again, it's been a very busy June for me. If you can't tell, I've moved. Anyways, hopefully once things get settled, I'll release these in a more timely manner, hopefully. Anyways, yeah, developer Questline, this is their first big project. They've done some small stuff, but this is their first full, I would say, considered even maybe AA release. It's definitely kind of walks the line between indie and AA. Anyways, none of that really matters. It is based on a board game, which is interesting, but it takes a lot of inspiration from Elder Scrolls and other Scrolls-like games, and takes that formula and sort of puts it into a dark Arthurian legend setting. It's quite interesting. And my sort of brief thoughts here, it really surprised me. And I want to say, it is a good video game, but there's a lot of caveats here. There's a ton of technical problems, and it's very janky. But for this developer's first foray into Scrolls-like, it shows a ton of promise and has a lot of interesting and great systems. And dare I say it, it does some things even better than Big Daddy Bethesda. So although there are a lot of problems here, and I can't recommend this game for everyone, I really want to get across the message that there is a lot to like here. And if you can look past some of that shit and you find yourself a really hardcore Scrolls-like enjoyer, you probably will like this one. And for only $45, money talks. It's easier to look past some of these things. Anyways, I'm not gonna get too much in the weeds right this second. Let's go ahead and dive into all that. But before I do, I just want to remind you, if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. I just like to stream and, talk about video games, do video game reviews, tier lists, all that good stuff. So if you like video games as well, you'll probably enjoy the channel. Self-plug. I'm always, again, so bad at these things. All right, but let's go ahead and take a look. Let's go ahead and dive into Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon. I always like to start off with the technical bones of the game, performance, bugs, visual, presentation, those sorts of things. And honestly, Tainted Grail, Fall of Avalon, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad all around, technically. And I would say that's the weakest part of Tainted Grail. There are tons of bugs, especially in Act 2 and 3. Like, I almost couldn't finish this game because of how many bugs there were. And I experienced a lot of quest-breaking bugs, and luckily no complete game-breaking, but I've heard that some people have completely lost their save files. It really made the last two acts nearly unplayable. It was tough, and I think this is one of the reasons why it's going to be hard for some people to get into and why I can't really recommend it to everybody. It also doesn't really run extremely well. Not terrible either. On my mid to high range PC, I was consistently hitting 60 frames. It does say playable on Steam Deck, but I was barely hitting 30 on my Steam Deck. But, for an indie game with, I think they have like 30 or something developers, the performance is decent. But I'm surprised it runs this poor because visually the game is not much of a looker. There are times where sort of maybe the lighting hits just right, but generally the textures are pretty muddy and the quality is fairly low. The character models and the animations are very, very bad, specifically the lip syncing. Characters just sort of stand there stiff and awkward and move their mouth up and down when they talk to you. Environments, like I said, when the lighting will hit just right, can look good, but other times will look pretty bad. I will say the art style is interesting. You know, it wasn't necessarily totally my jam all the time. There are some really cool parts, some H.G. Geiger alien looking architecture and sets, and that part was pretty cool. But outside of that, it was unique, but not always my jam per se. So, you know, overall, the technicals and performance, you know, very buggy, performed decently, presentation kind of mid. You know, it's an indie game. It's got this Euro jank, and like I said, it's gonna be hard for some people to look past that. But if you can, this is where the game starts to get good. Let's go ahead and hop into that part. Starting off with the story and the questing, which actually really surprised me. The writing here is pretty good. As I've mentioned, the setting here, it takes place in Arthurian legend and the world of Avalon, and you'll wake up in a dungeon. It definitely wears its Elder Scrolls inspiration on its chest here. And you know, the kingdom of Avalon here, it's very much in shambles. It's afflicted by a plague known as the Red Death, and then there's this weirdness, which is a sort of chaotic primordial force that alters reality and the beings within it. And you'll discover that you are bound to the soul of the long dead King Arthur. The quest can take a lot of twists or turns depending on your decisions, but generally it involves collecting the remaining pieces of King Arthur's soul to aid in his resurrection. And you can go about that sort of in a few different ways. So as you can tell, yeah, there's a lot of good choice and consequence here, a lot of good role-playing opportunities. King Arthur is written interestingly. He's not your classic knight in shining armor. No, he's a little bit more morally gray. We all love a good morally gray story, don't we? There are some interesting and mysterious side characters. So again, I won't spoil much here, but in general, the main story and quest line, it actually surprised me. It's better than most Elder Scrolls games. And then there's a lot of interesting and quirky side quests as well, if they were not broken. Again, gotta stress, a lot of broken side quests for me. But although this game takes place in a very dark and dreary and drab world, it is really surprisingly good at injecting some quirky humor in there. Kind of reminded me of Oblivion in some of those instances. And as you work your way through this world, you discover it's split up into 3 separate zones, one for each sort of main act that's centered around collecting a piece of King Arthur. Now, Act 1, Zone 1, fantastic. Polished, lots of good quests. It felt like it was complete, and that probably had a lot to do with it being in early access. Now, Act 2, it sort of starts to fall apart near the middle, and Act 3, it felt really bare bones. So, not every zone is created equal. I do wish the 3rd zone was fleshed out a bit more. All right, now let's go ahead and move on to the progression and the character building, which for me, I think the progression here is something that I really hope Bethesda takes note of for the Elder Scrolls moving forward. Because in Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon, the progression, I think it's fantastic. It adds just enough depth and complexity here without making it difficult to understand. I think it really is the best part of Tainted Grail, and yeah, I really do hope that Bethesda takes some notes. And I'll briefly explain it here. So as you complete quests, kill monsters, level up skills, you will level up your general level. And once you level up, you will get attribute points to put points into your base sort of characteristics, strength, dexterity, those sorts of things, as well as you'll get a perk point to put into multiple different skill trees, as well as you use a certain skill or, weapon or magic ability, you will level up that specific ability. So there's sort of 3 different things working in conjunction here, but they all are intuitive in their own right. And I think that's what makes the progression so satisfying and easy to understand, but still deep enough to really craft a specific build. In particular, the summoner here is so much more deep and complex than an Elder Scrolls game, where you can give yourself perks where having certain summons will increase your magicka regen, or once a summon dies, it'll give health to your other summons. Cool stuff like that really help make a build feel more fleshed out. On top of the great character progression, there's also some really interesting items, weapons, and equipment. Some weapons even have very build-defining perks. perks, which is very, very cool. I found some legendary weapons where I just wanted to create an entire build around it, which you never really get in Elder Scrolls games. And of course, there's also crafting skills. You can craft your own weapons, you can create potions. Both of these are also deeper and more complex than the Elder Scrolls. And I just, in general, the progression, it was just very refreshing to have something with a little bit more depth and something that I could chew on a little bit more than your average Elder Scrolls experience. Anyway, comparison can be the thief of joy. I'm not trying to compare Tainted Grail too much to these other games, but my point being is that the progression here was fantastic, and I hope other Scrolls games can sort of learn from Tainted Grail. And now let's go ahead and talk about the meat and potatoes here, the gameplay as well, which generally in Scrolls games is not the best, can be sort of lacking in Bethesda titles. And here in Tainted Grail, it's pretty good. They added a few things that I think help it set above its competition. The biggest thing being a dodge, just a quick little dodge, and also a parry. And because of this dodge, I will say being a rogue or spellcasting is so much more fun. Being able to quickly skirt around the battlefield and dodge under enemies' attacks, it just feels really good. The spellcasting here is also a little bit more meaty. There's a light and a heavy cast for each spell. For instance, the fireball spell, you can sort of throw a fireball or do a fire blast with your light attack, or for your heavy, you unleash a torrent of fire out in your enemy. Or for the summoning, the heavy cast will actually summon it, and then the light cast will order your minion to attack. In the gameplay here, it's not going to blow you out of the water or anything, but it does add a few things here that I think make it more enjoyable than the competition. Anyways, yeah, that's sort of my main thoughts here on the Tainted Grail, the Fall of Avalon. You know, in general, it's janky, it's buggy. There is a lot to love here, but there's also a lot that frustrated me. The character models look like shit, and just in general, the game's presentation is mixed at best. However, for what it's missing in AAA polish and visuals, it more than makes up for in some amazing systems and mechanics. The progression is fantastic, and there is some pretty solid gameplay to boot. And comparing these specific pieces to its obvious inspirations in Elder Scrolls, in my humble opinion, Tainted Grail has the slight edge here in a few things. Tainted Grail offers more depth while not going too crazy and still being easily accessible and understandable. And on top of that, the story and the voice acting very much surprised me. I was not expecting much, and it kind of hooked me in a few instances. And for all this, the extra kicker is that Tainted Grail, it's only $45 for at least, 40 to 50 hours of very solid gameplay. In the end though, it is going to be hard for some people to get over that jank, those bugs. And I never had anything completely game breaking, but some of the horror stories I've seen online, the technical bones of the game need to be a little bit more polished. Because of the high highs and the low lows, I have to give Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon, a very, very solid 7.5 out of 10. It's a good game. I really, really wanted to give it that 8 or 8.5, but with the meh visuals and the Euro jank and just the bugs, it's really, really hard for me to justify a score like that. But if you can put up with those things, if you're into the sort of the indie experience, I would definitely recommend it. And for only $45, you're definitely going to get your money's worth. And I know, I've just said, this isn't like an amazing 8 or 9, a fantastic Game of the Year contender game, but this still has me really, really excited because of the potential that I see here. If Tainted Grail can sell well, Questline should get a bigger budget for a bigger sequel. With that, hopefully they can make a more presentable and polished experience, along with offering the same level of depth and, the interesting world and story. Now, all of that easily sounds like a 9 or a 10 out of 10 game to me. So that's why I really wanted to make this video and make sure to get across that, Questline, they've done something good here. They've done something special. But I don't necessarily go out and recommend buying it right away. Anyways, again, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your guys' patience as I'm, taking a little bit longer to come out with these videos during the summertime. There's so many games this year too, so please stay tuned. I'll be releasing another review here hopefully soon for another indie game, The Altars. It's been a year of indie games so far. Again, if you haven't already, please subscribe. I stream here on YouTube about twice a week, so pop in the stream, say hello, or Don't. Do whatever you want. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.